This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Hey, it's Chris Kirkpatrick, and welcome to the Executive Job Search Secrets Podcast. And for this episode, I'm going to talk about how to build your story. Now, when it comes to selling, and if you've been listening to my podcast, you understand that your job search is a sales process. You are a product in the marketplace, and you are selling yourself. And if you've ever done any sort of sales job in the world, you are very aware that story-based selling is one of the most impactful ways that you can sell anything. And that doesn't change to when you are selling yourself for your job search, right? And so what I'm going to do in this episode is talk to you about how to build your origin story in a way that is going to make a significant impact on your job search and for your interview process. So let's roll the theme music and we'll get into it. We all know most executive level positions are not posted or advertised. So the big question is this: if those 100K plus jobs are not posted or advertised, how do you go about your job search in a way so you can find the right companies, connect with the right people, and land your next ideal opportunity as quickly as possible and without compromise? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Chris Kirkpatrick, and welcome to Executive Job Search Secrets. All right, so when it comes to creating your story, this is something that you're going to want to go through and map out. It's something that you're going to want to practice. This is a really hard exercise. It's probably going to take you a couple hours to really go through and think about this stuff. And once you go through and you do your first draft, I want you to kind of take a step back and then revisit this content and the information that you create for yourself with a fresh perspective, because what I find is most of the clients that I work with come back to this after the fact, and they have a lot of things that they realize that they want to add to it or maybe tweak elements of it because they have more clarity and more perspective after they've thought about it after the fact, right? So one of the biggest things, the best way to think about, so I'm going to give you a framework. I'm going to give you some questions to consider as you go through and you build out your story in ways that you want to communicate ultimately. Because remember, when you're talking about your origin story, it's not just about your story. When you're telling your story, it has to be told in such a way that's conveyed to the person that you're looking to get a job with, right? It has to be conveyed in a way to them that makes sense to them and that shows that you are on a similar path, that they need to be able to relate to your story, and they need to believe that your story is going to benefit them in some way. That's going to and benefit the company in some way, right? So when you think about this, I want you to think about, what's your backstory? What's the backstory that gives others a vested interest in your journey, right? As this executive to come into their company and help solve a problem, right? So a lot of times that backstory is going to be ways that you've grown through your career, different transitions you've made through your career, different problems that you've solved in your career with different organizations that had similar problems to the company that you're looking to go in with. You want to frame up your backstory in a way that is very relatable to the person that you're talking to. Now, it's okay if you have a kind of a templated origin story, so to speak, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just understand, especially from the backstory perspective, understand when you're going into each interview that you want to customize that backstory to be in as much alignment as possible with that organization that you're trying to get the job with in that moment, right? Now, the next thing I want you to think about is your desires. What is it that you want to accomplish in everything that you're doing? We all have internal and external desires that we want. Things we want. We have external desires of wanting to be a CEO of a company or wanting to help a company reach a certain level because of revenue, because of the validation and the status that will come with that. There's nothing wrong with that. We have our own internal desires of being able to have time freedom and family time and being able to blend personal life and work life, and have that kind of work-life balance that everybody kind of talks about that doesn't really purely exist hardly ever, right? It's those types of things. We all have these desires. Think about what your desires are. A lot of times the desires are wanting to make an impact in the industry, wanting to change the world. When you go and find companies that are in alignment with the impact that you want to make in the world, with your legacy, and when all those things, if you can align your desires with the company, with their mission, with where they want to go, that passion is going to shine through, and that's going to help you extremely. So you want to make sure that that you integrate your desires internally and externally into your backstory, if that makes sense. Now, the other thing that I want you to think about is, what was the challenge? Like, what made you want to go down this road? What got you interested in this industry? What makes you really passionate about this industry? Because that's a big thing. It's that old John Maxwell thing you've probably heard me say 1,000 times, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This is going to get people to buy into you, understanding why, what was the tipping point that got you really interested in this industry. And then when you saw that, when you had that, when you were looking for jobs, or when you were working in your last place of employment, there are always things. We always have these aha moments. That it happens to all of us. We have epiphanies, and I think our epiphanies are not unique. They're unique to us, maybe that specific epiphany, but we all have them. It's a human condition. We all get epiphanies, and it's those epiphanies that are emotional bridges that connect you with other people. So if you can connect your epiphanies that you've had in your career that have led you to this moment, right, that have connected with you, that have made you interested in this opportunity, that's going to be a huge emotional opportunity for you to bridge with that person. It's going to get them to buy into your why, into your story, into why your past experience and the challenges that you've solved, and your desires and your backstory, and then the epiphany that you had in certain moments that have really made you become a thought leader. Because you don't become a leader at the level that you are, if you're listening to this podcast, without having significant amounts of epiphanies throughout your career, and then doing the right things with those epiphanies after the fact, right? So when you realized it, what was the plan that you created, right? But like when you had your first success and then you built the next successes, what's the plan that you have, right? What's the plan that you had in your past companies to create success? How can you take that plan and pivot it to the success of this company moving forward? Ultimately, though, it's showing a plan, showing that you have a plan. It's being able to say your story in a way that relates to the conflict that they're having right now. Make sure you're taking into consideration what conflict that you think they're experiencing right now that you can help resolve for them, right? And at the end of the day, what is it that you want to achieve, right? With this organization, with your career, with the industry, what have you? What is it that you want to achieve? And you want to make sure, once again, that you frame this up in a way that is going to be in alignment with what they want to achieve, right? Now, putting this together is a little bit of a challenge for people, but these are the questions that I want you to think about. Think about, what's your backstory? What are your desires internally and externally? What are some of the problems that you saw in the industry, right? That you're looking to solve? What are some epiphanies that you've had that have really catapulted your career? And those epiphanies, how do they relate to this organization in a way that they will see you as being able to push them forward? The epiphany is really what allows you to kind of become that thought leader in your space. And as you're building your origin story, think about, what conflicts is the company that you're interviewing with experiencing? And at the end of the day, what are they looking to achieve for a desired result? And how can you build your story in such a way that shows to them that you are the person to help them accomplish that? Now, that is one of those things I always say when we talk about marketing or sales. You need to have a good hook. You got to have something that's your resume, that's your pro forma, that's your LinkedIn profile. You got to have that good hook that is going to get somebody to open the door. You have to have a good story. The origin story is the first part of your story, and it's the first part of that engagement, right? And then you need to have a good offer. At the end of the day, you need to be able to make sure that you can connect with them. and you need to make sure that you can solve their problems, that you can communicate and have a clear call to action and a clear sales pitch and offer about you as a product in the marketplace, how you are going to be the best person to solve their problems and drive their company to get the results that they're looking to get, right? So the hook, the story, the offer, the origin story here is the story part of everything. And it's one of the most overlooked parts because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of internal perspective, and it takes time for you to do it effectively. So I hope that helps. I hope it makes sense. And until next time, go out there, crush it. And feel free to reach out. You can email me, chris@careernextagency.com if you have any questions. I'll talk to you on the next podcast. Thanks so much for listening. As a token of my gratitude, I want to give you free access to my Executive Job Search Secrets Masterclass that'll walk you through the 5 steps we use with every single one of our clients to help them find their ideal job in the shortest time possible. If you look below, the link to the masterclass and your free access will be listed in the description of this podcast episode. I hope it makes a huge impact in your job search. Go out there and crush it. I'll see you on the next podcast.
Like what you just heard? Visit c-suiteradio.com. C-Suite Radio, turning the volume up on business.